Thank you. So, well, how about Connie Morello? I mean, is that all you have to say, huh? How about her? She's really great. You know, Rockville, isn't this close to Bethesda? Okay, so I used to take the Rockville bus. I used to take it from over in D.C. I would take the Rockville bus, and I would get off, and I would go to the National Library of Medicine, where I worked for a summer as a summer intern, right here. I mean, it's a small world, isn't it? And what happened was, Connie mentioned this meeting I had with Nixon. I tried to get a job working in the White House, and they didn't give me any job, and they turned me down. I just kept bugging them, and then finally they said, would you like to have a job working at the National Library of Medicine in Bethesda, Maryland? I said, I have no clue what that's about, but yes. And so I actually was at Ohio State, and I took my clothes. When you guys start beating us, then you can boo, okay? Anyway, somebody boo in Ohio State. Anyway, but you're coming on. You beat us in basketball. I let you do it in two times this year, just so I could get your vote in this primary. So let's be clear now. But anyway, so I packed up all my stuff, and I took a Greyhound bus to American University. I was there living at that school on a summer basis, and worked at the National Library of Medicine. And it was a great experience. And I got picked as one of the outstanding summer employees. I really pulled the wool over their eyes. And I had a friend that worked at the National Institutes of Health, and he was working on cleft palate. I mean, I've never talked about this, but he worked on cleft palate, and I learned so much about the National Institutes of Health. And I was just with a terrific guy, and he's suffering from a neurological disease. And let me just tell you all, I'm for balancing budgets. I don't know if my debt clock is not here today, but always when we move to balance budgets, in the past, and it will be in the future if I'm president, we will significantly increase at least double the amount of funding for the National Institutes of Health, so we can begin to solve these problems of Alzheimer's and dementia, these neurological diseases, right? But, so here's what, hey, look, I want to say something about, a lot about Connie here from the standpoint that, look, you know, we had this Republican team and this Republican agenda, and it didn't always fit her. And there are times when she had a struggle, but she always felt she was part of the team because she saw the final purpose in what we were doing. And you think about, Connie, when we got the budget balanced, and I mean, things were going great in the country. Everybody who wanted a job could basically get one. Our wages were growing faster than the national average. And at the same time, I think we had the hope and the feeling and the confidence that our children would have better lives than what we had. And the thing I want to tell you is that it's the thing you have to understand about why do you balance a budget, because it's sort of a esoteric thing. You know, well, we know we want to balance budgets because we know we can't run ourselves way into the debt, and we know our children shouldn't have to be penalized for the sins of spending today. But there's something more that you need to understand about balancing budgets. When debt goes up, and our debt is about 19 trillion, when debt goes up, job opportunities come down. And when debt comes down, job opportunities go up. Do we have any small business people here today? What do you think? How many people work with you? You? Okay. How about you, sir? 45. So you're yourself. You want to hire somebody else soon, but you're going to be careful about it. Sir, you've got 45 people. What do you think when you see the debt go up? Does that make you feel good? It scares you. And when we frighten job creators, because the small business people are the biggest job creators in the country, when we frighten the job creators, they just don't create jobs. And, you know, people talk about Bernie and Hillary. Okay, they got a lot of nice plans here about all this free stuff. We're going to have free this, free that. Okay, I'm all for free. But you know what the problem is for the young people that are here? You go to college, you get that extra education, or you didn't. You went over to, to other types of skills-based education. You want to get a job. With all the free stuff they want to give away, the projected debt will be $30 trillion. So you're going to have all this skill, but you won't have a job. And that's why we have to use common sense in this. And so anyway, Connie voted for this, and things were much better. We cut some taxes, and she didn't sign up to all of this stuff because she had to represent her folks. But Connie, I think I represent a party that you could be very comfortable with, as you said today on this stage. Now, let me tell you that whether it's that Nixon story or whether it was getting this out of the blue job at the National Library of Medicine, or getting hired in Ohio in the legislature when somebody got fired, I could go on and on and on. Let me just tell you this. I believe that I have, by the grace of God, been given an opportunity to do things in my life that I'm deeply thankful for. And when you feel as though you've been given grace, and we all know what grace, we all want grace. Is there anything we want? It's grace, because grace is something we get and we don't have to earn it. Somebody just gives it to us. It's like, wow, why did you do that? Well, I'm giving you grace. And when you feel as though you have something like that, you have an obligation to try to do things to help other folks. Period, and end of story. So all of my lifetime, with a father who carries mail on his back, whose father was a coal miner who died of black lung, or a mother who lived in this tiny little apartment where she was the only one of the 4 siblings to graduate from high school, and who had a mother who could barely speak English. My job, in this little town where I'm going to tonight, by the way, my little hometown of McKees Rocks, I'm going there tonight. It's all blue collar, it's all Democrats. And the fact of the matter is, if the wind blew the wrong way, people found themselves out of work. And so my whole purpose has been to be able to give everybody a chance in our country to be lifted, to have opportunity. That's what it's all about. And I've never taken orders from anybody other than my wife. Now, I've got a guy here, he's a dear, dear friend of mine, Will Kofer. I'm going to tell you a funny story. And I have never told this story before. And this one's going to get me in trouble. So wherever Shrimp is, get ready. So I get on the Armed Services Committee. I don't remember exactly what year it was. I think I was just elected to Congress. And I was on this subcommittee called the Readiness Subcommittee. And maybe I shouldn't tell this story. So I get this call that I need to go to the House Intelligence Committee for our meeting of the Readiness Subcommittee. I'm like, there's no reason for me to have to go up there. All we're trying to do is make sure people have enough boots, enough guns, enough ammunition, enough of this, enough of that. There's no secret stuff here. Well, they keep finding me, telling me, you need to go. So I walk into the House Intelligence Committee, and the chairman says, well, I hope we're all in agreement. And I'm like, in agreement with what? Well, the fact is we're going to pay the bills of Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos, because they were great supporters of us in the Second World War, and this is the thing we ought to do. And so can I have a vote on that? So everybody voted yes, and I raised my hand. I said, I can't vote for that. What, are you kidding? I mean, I like shoes, but not that many, okay? So the room blew up. I had never met this man before. He comes up to me, he says, you need to, the place was chaotic. So I'm walking out, and I mean, I'm just a kid, right? The whole thing's blowing up. And he comes up to me, he says, you need to go and apologize to the chairman because you embarrassed him. I said, well, how did I? He said, just listen to me. So I go down to the chairman's office, and I said, I'd like to have a meeting with the chairman. And they won't let me in. So I go back a couple days in a row. I call him. I don't really know him. I said, what do I do? He says, no, you keep going back there, and he'll let you in. So one day I get a phone call to go down and have a meeting with the chairman. And he's sitting in the room with a bunch of other staffers, and the chairman throws this report at me. And he says, are you happy about this? And I go to look at it. He says, don't look at it. This meeting is over. So I leave the room. So a couple weeks later, I'm out on a golf course. And everybody here will tell you when a golf cart is coming towards you on a golf cart, they're never coming out to tell you that you won the Irish lottery, okay? So the lady says the chairman's office is on the phone for you. and wants to speak to you. So I drive into the clubhouse, I call the chairman's office. And the lady who's kind of in charge of his office says to me, the chairman wants to thank you very much for your support to not give Ferdinand Marcos all those bills paid. It's on the front page of the USA Today, and he wanted to thank you for your very strong support. Is that right? You all get that story? Huh? You get that story? You remember that, Will? So I want you to know something. I'm just going to do my best. Always try to just do my best, and we've had good results. Connie talked in Washington, in Ohio, we're up over 420,000 jobs. We're running a surplus, and we don't believe the mentally ill ought to sleep under a bridge or live in prison, or that the lives of the drug addicted ought to be flushed down the drain, and we believe the developmentally disabled ought to be given a chance to rise, and the working poor should have a system that rewards their getting ahead, not punishing them by taking their child care away, and also making sure our friends in the minority community do well. So folks, I decided to get into this because the other thing is I'm not going to be a negative. Some people say, well, why don't you do better in the primaries? Well, first of all, I started zero. None of you even heard my name until a couple months ago. The second thing I want to tell you, though, is that people have big anxiety today. Is my job secure? Are my wages ever going to rise? And what's going to happen to my kids? Now, we can look at that scenario and we can drive people into the ditch. Okay, we can drive people into greater negativity. I've chosen not to do that. I've chosen to take a path of telling people, yes, the problems are real, but we can solve these problems. And I'm trying to peddle hope. Now, hope in the short term doesn't get you a lot of attention because hope's too positive. Negative is what works, okay? But over the long haul, people want to be hopeful, and they want to believe their lives can be better, and they want to believe that the American dream is alive and well, contrary to what anybody in here may be saying. So anyway, to make a long story short, we're just going to keep plugging, and I need your support tomorrow after we finish this. Hopefully I won't screw this up. I've done over 200 of them, and let's not ruin this one. So, no, I'm just kidding. Who wants to go first with a question? Because we can take some questions here. Yes, the small business woman. Yeah, you can give me a little round of applause. That's fine.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being in Maryland. It's nice that our votes actually count this year.
They'll be counting in the fall, too, believe me. I'll be back here.
Our current president has failed miserably in recognizing the deaths of law enforcement officers recently. He was very quick to comment on Prince's death, but has not made any comment about many line-of-duty deaths of law enforcement officers. When you're president, how will you support law enforcement?
Well, I mean, obviously, when somebody gives their life on behalf of somebody else, whether they're in the military, whether they're in the fire or the police, see, I happen to believe another thing. And, you know, if people don't agree with this stuff, that's okay with me. But I have to tell you, I believe that people who give their lives serving somebody else wear the biggest crowns in the world yet to come. And so that's number one. Number two, what we really have to do is, I think, what we have done in Ohio. We have to recognize the fact that when you look at Baltimore, or when you look at Ferguson, or you look around the country and you see this strife. And I think the strife fundamentally comes from people not either understanding each other or not talking to one another. So in my state, we've organized a big collaborative of people who are trying to get people in the community who feel that the system doesn't only just not work for them, but works against them, to feel is that we're listening to them, and we want our police officers, our men and women who do absolutely incredible things. We just had a police officer, I got a note on it over the weekend. What this guy did, he chased this guy on a motorcycle. The guy jumped off the motorcycle, ran into a field, and this police officer chases this guy and the guy who's chasing has a gun, and the police officer sticks his finger in to keep the trigger from operating. He takes the guy down, he handcuffs him, and arrests him. I mean, can you believe that? I got to call him. I mean, what a guy, what a hero. And why'd he chase him? Thought the guy probably was connected to drugs, the scourge that's affecting all of our country. So, in my view, what a president needs to do is to bring together both the law enforcement community and the people who live in the community who feel as though they're not being treated fairly. You get them together. In Ohio, we've created a statewide policy on the use of deadly force. We're looking at the hiring and recruiting policies of our police so that they will reflect the makeup of the community. And the people in the community have to understand that this policeman or policewoman want to go home with their family and that we should respect them for the service they give. You do that, you pull that together, and you will have good results, just like we're having in our state, okay? Way in the back. You and then the guy behind you.
Oh, you got it. Thanks, Governor Kasich. Dave Pasty, I'm an attorney in Rockville. And I remember you back about 18 years ago when you were balancing the budget, and I've thought about you ever since, and I'm so thankful that you're running. But I did see an article in the Post here about the national debt, and I just want to read just the first paragraph. And it says, the United States government has $13 trillion in debt. I feel fine. You should too, because despite what Jim Grant tells on the cover of Time magazine, this doesn't mean that every man, woman, and child has to pay $42,998 themselves. All it means is that we have plenty of debt to roll over, which we will. The government, after all, is immortal. It doesn't have to pay back everything it owes like you or I do. It just has to pay back the interest it owes so that investors will keep lending on good terms. I just couldn't believe when I read that. And I just wanted to...
Well, that's you understand, sometimes, I don't know if that's an economist, but the reason why God created astrologers was to make economists look accurate, okay? Only thing I would say to that, I think it's what Truman used to say, horse feathers, okay? No, the fact of the matter is, the United States came close to defaulting, and we started to see our credit rating in America downgraded. Look, just stick with the simple thing that I know is true. When the debt goes up, people lose confidence. Just ask the guy who's creating the jobs. Now, I'll tell you, in our state, and by the way, what we do in Ohio, we're the 7th largest state, can absolutely be transferred nationally. If you talk to our job creators, the ones who create the jobs in our state and the ones who work with job creators, one of the single best things that we have going for us is we went from an $88 billion hole to a $2 billion surplus. Our pensions are secure. We've all worked together to make sure that we have strong economics in the state. Now, you look at Connecticut, where things have been tattered. GE just announced they're moving their headquarters out. If you overtax, overregulate, and can't control your spending, bad things come. Look, I'm very concerned in this country about income inequality. I'm very concerned in this country about the fact that our wages are not going up. When you have the lousy growth that we have had for about 10 years now, and when you think about the fact that we've overregulated, overtaxed, and we can't control our spending, things are not growing. We're not getting 3 to 3.5% economic growth. Our growth is terrible. And when that happens, we don't get the investment, we don't get the productivity, we don't get the confidence. Now, there's other things that contribute to income inequality, and that gets down to skills. We've got to make sure that our young boys and girls who are in our early education system are given skills for jobs that exist today and jobs that will exist tomorrow. And that means an education system that works. Now, this gets to a message that I think is really probably the most important. And, I happen to believe that people are made special for a purpose. I happen to believe that, oh, look at these young people back here. Wow, did I make you drop that sign? Here, let me help you here, kid. Where do you guys go to school?
St. Raphael's.
Okay. Now, have they ever told you in your school that there's never been anybody like you and no one will ever be like you again, that you're made special? Do you know that? Yeah, you've been made for a purpose, to change the world, to heal the world, to lift the world in whatever way we can. I was telling a young lady just like that in Utah this, and she started to cry. And I told my wife about it, and my wife, I said, I think maybe I startled her. She had never thought about this before. My wife says, you sure you didn't scare her? But the fact is, we're all made special for a purpose, in my opinion. And when we find that purpose, that's how we change the world, and that's how we find satisfaction in life. Now, how does that get back to education and all that kind of stuff? You see, when I was a kid, and I remember that great series between the Pirates, where I grew up, and the Orioles, it was wonderful. And it was like Baltimore and Pittsburgh, two different sides of the same coin, so similar in so many ways. Our hero was Roberto Clemente, the great baseball player. Okay, for a lot of kids now, it's Cal Ripken, right? Or it's what it's like. And you see, we never thought about the president, really. If the president ever came, his limo would be going past at 120 miles an hour. Hey, I think that was the president. Was it? I don't know, We believed in ourselves. We believed that when we had problems in our community, that all of us were in charge of fixing them. And all of us have different purposes in our lives as to what we do to bring a healing. Some people are nurses and they spend extra time with families that need help. Some people are doctors and have the power of healing. Some people are educators and they give up money to change the lives of young people. I mean, everybody does something that has to do something that's special to them. So when I talk about educating our children, when I talk about that they need to have the skills so they can have the skills to get the jobs, to make the money, to have a good, strong family, what are we waiting on? You waiting for the president to fix your schools? I mean, presidents aren't coming in to fix your schools. I mean, we want to have good presidents that can inspire us and set the right tone. But at the end of the day, in the state of Maryland, Maryland is neighborhoods. Maryland is communities. That's the way I see it. A lot of ethnicity, which brings you even closer together. You see, you want to get your schools fixed? What are you waiting on? I mean, I'm going to give you all the 104 programs and all the money connected to them, but you don't need to wait. You got a problem with drugs in this community? Go fix it. You might say, well, how do I do that? Well, when you go to church on Sunday, do they talk to the young people about not doing drugs? When you go to synagogue, do they talk about not going on drugs? When they go to the athletic field and the kids are getting ready to run out in their clean uniforms to go out and play that Little League baseball game, do we make an announcement about drugs? When we go to the Lions Club or we go to any of these clubs and we meet, do we ever make a commitment out of any of those organizations to grab a kid and tell them to stay off drugs? You want to win the battle on drugs? Go do it. I mean, we can help and government can help. You want to deal with poverty? Then get the business guy like him in the welfare office. Give the people the help they need, but train them for a job. That's how it's got to work. You see, I think part of the problem, Connie, is that we've lost our spirit, our confidence, not all, but many, in the fact that we can solve things ourselves. Maybe it's because we've relied too much on government. Maybe we think that, maybe we also begin to think that, well, look, if I can't change everything, I shouldn't change anything. So I'm going to do my best to create the economic growth, to provide some unfettered regulations, to get on top of the foreign policy stuff, to be as good a leader as I can. But the strength of our country doesn't rest in the president. It rests in our families and our neighborhoods and our communities. And when we believe in that and carry that out, that's how we restore the spirit of the United States of America, I believe. So grow up and change the world for the better, because we're all counting on you. Don't feel any pressure, okay? All the way in the back, sir. Yes, sir.
Governor, 1995 was a great summer for me. It was the summer that I met my wife, and it was also the summer that I interned in the Senate. and was assigned to Senator Demichi's budget meetings, and that's when I first heard of you, and I've been a fan ever since. And over the past couple of years, I've been talking to my friends about you and making the case for you. And one of the challenges I think of this, one of my frustrations for this campaign season has been a lack of discussion about serious issues and the debate I think we need to have as a party. And so as I talk to my friends, some of the issues that they are at least concerned about you is your position on Common Core, your position on immigration. And if you wouldn't mind, if you can kind of comment on those two items.
You know, we're just talking about skills. So Common Core in my state, as it should be in every state, because I don't think the president ought to be running our schools. Our schools are run by the community and the local school board. I mean, that's just what I believe. Now, in our state, we've now put in higher standards. Our state school board has accepted higher standards, and our local school boards are the ones that develop the curriculum to meet the higher standards. Now, you know why we don't have high standards in our schools sometimes? Because we all want to live in Lake Wobegon. Every kid's an A. Every boy is handsome, every girl is pretty, and they're all going to be, you know, rocket scientists. And, you know, I believe that you have to have high standards. And frankly, we need an education system that's very flexible, that can really feed the interests of our young people. One of my daughters wants to be a neonatologist. I said, what is that? We took her down to the hospital to meet with some doctors to learn about how to deal with little babies. My other daughter, she's interested in fashion. She just took a volunteer job called Dress for Success, where she's going to help people to get on their feet. These two girls are 16 years old. We're trying to feed them with real life experiences so they can feel excited about what they're doing in school, because then they begin to learn that what they learn in school is useful for what they want to be. And you've got to have the high standards. So that's Common Core. Secondly, on immigration, we have to finish this border. We have to protect our border. I mean, it's not just because of immigration, but it's also because of national security. But I will also tell you that finish the border, protect ourselves here in terms of who comes in, have a guest worker program for people to be able to come in, work, and go home. And in addition to that, for the 11.5 million who came here illegally, if they haven't committed a crime since they've been here, and most likely they become a part of our society, they'll pay back taxes, a fine, and maybe some other things, but at the end of the day, they can get a path to legalization, not to citizenship. But I have to tell you, the idea that we're going to go pick 11.5 million people out of their homes, leaving their kids on the front porch crying, is absurd, okay? I am not in favor of that, and if it means I don't win, tough. You got all these, I want to get a couple, yes, these two ladies right here. Yes, one after the other, go ahead. Yeah, it's you. You come here, you spin the wheel, if it comes up red, there's a new car sitting right out in the parking lot.
Thank you for the opportunity to give us a chance to pose our questions. You've been talking a lot, Mr. Kasich, education. I have two sons in college, one high school senior going to college. The big question is, what is your plan to make college attendance affordable to our kids?
Where are they going?
Colorado State. Because he was given scholarship,
Okay,
which
good.
he couldn't get from.
Is he in mining? That's a big school for mining.
Environmental science
Oh,
and
good,
philosophy.
good. And where's the other one go?
The other one is overseas. It's cheaper to send him to a school overseas in Dubai, American University in Dubai.
Okay, great. Well, look, let me say a couple things here. First of all, for these people who are young, and I was just at Bryant University with a friend of mine who's the president, Ron Makeley, and you know, I said some things that, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said because, you know, I'm at this university, but let me give you a couple ideas. First of all, you know, you can go to a community college, some schools for 2 years pay $8,000 and $8,000 total and cut the cost of your higher education in half, okay? That's a thought for somebody, okay? And all the credits will transfer to the four-year school. So you could go to a community college here in Maryland. I don't know, you know, I don't know the names of them, but for a very relatively low price, you can go there and transfer all your credits to the University of Maryland and cut your costs in half. In Ohio, we're trying to push for 3 years. So you can go 3 years to the community college and transfer, which cuts your costs, I mean, unbelievable. Then the other thing is, we have a number of students, and clearly I would say to you that your kids wouldn't fit into that with where they're going now, but we have a number of students who graduate who have to take remedial math and English when they get to college. So they're paying for what they should have learned as a junior, and they're paying college tuition. So we need to remediate all of these people online so that when they go to school, they don't have to start taking remedial courses, and they can jump right into it. In addition, this smart group of young people here, when you get into high school, you can take college credit courses. And when you take that credit, it transfers to the school. You could almost complete an entire first year while you're still in high school for free. Now, there's two other things I want to say here. One is, these rising costs of higher education is not sustainable. Nobody is going to spend $60,000, $65,000 a year in after-tax income to go to the university. This is going to end. And I've told the universities this, and the community colleges this, because that's, you'd say $60,000, that's $240,000. That's $480,000 in after-tax income. Are you kidding me? They better get their act together, and part of it is to cut their costs and figure out what they're not tending to. Because you see, what happens is, what's going to happen is people are going to get an online education at a fraction of the cost. Some entrepreneur is going to figure out how they can have the real college experience and cut the costs in half. And then with the savings, they can have spring break in the Bahamas like 10 years in a row, okay? But that's coming. But it is hard for university presidents to do this. But it is vital that they do it. And the president, just like I've done in Ohio, needs to get the best group of business people, men and women, to talk about how we take the rising costs out of these universities. So at Ohio State, the president of Ohio State wanted to lease the parking garages at Ohio State. The entire faculty the big part of the faculty went crazy and said it was a terrible idea. I have no idea why Ohio State even has parking garages. He leased these garages and got $500 million for it, and he put it into scholarships. At Bowling Green, they don't run a dining hall anymore. They privatized it. Take a guess how the food is. Better? What do you think the costs are? Less. And look, let me have that. You see, government sometimes, and even universities at times, it can be viewed as government. Here's see this? When my kids, they're 16, when they were about 10 or 11, we were on vacation. And they were with me, and they said, "Daddy, what's that box over there?" And I'm looking. Now, you young people won't get this, but the rest of you will. I said, "Oh, I get that. That's where Superman changes his clothes." And your mother and I used to put coins in there to call people on the phone. And my daughters are like, "No way, Daddy." So look at this. This is where we live today. This is how we communicate. This is how we shop. Think about the way in which we have transportation. The time is going to come when most young people, many young people, aren't going to want to own cars on a permanent basis. They're going to use Uber or Lyft, and they'll get around without owning a vehicle. Think about medicine now. I mean, it's not unusual to be approaching 100 and still getting around. And my Uncle George, we're going to see him tonight. He just turned 90. He walks 2 miles every day. His stock portfolio is better than anybody I know, okay? And think about nutrition. Think about all these things. Things are moving at the speed of light. There's two things that are not moving at the speed of light: government and these university structures. And they don't want to change. Now, we talk about balancing the budget, changing the government. We need to Uberize the entire government at all levels, okay? Now, here's what I read today in the paper on the way here. Think about this. Two of the most rapidly changing cities in America, one is Houston and the other one is Detroit. Do you know, I think from what I read, they have no zoning laws. Zero. There are areas of those cities where they go in and they just build. And they build affordable housing. They said in Houston, even though there's so many people going into Houston, housing prices have not escalated. You know why? This. Moving at the speed of light, getting government to think about innovation, and it's what our universities have to do, because if we do not innovate and if we do not change, we will die. Period. End of story. And that's why we need bold leadership to think creatively, innovatively, and out of the box. And because of this story, I get to keep these phones, okay? We had a lady right here. Then we'll take a couple students. Yes.
Thank you, Governor Kasich, for being here. I have two questions. One, I mean, it's so common sense. I mean, everything you're saying, it resonates, it makes sense. It's frustrating to see a lot of the rest of the U.S. not picking up on that. Do you have plans to, I don't know, go on Saturday Night Live, The Tonight Show?
No, I tell you, I've got a new plan. I'm going to go down to the Kennedy Space Center. I'm going to get in a rocket and have a short flight and land in the water, be fetched out of the ocean by a big Navy ship, and have a press conference. How's that sound? The only reason I might not do it is they might not pick me up, you know? But here's the thing that I want you to understand. Look, if you are a voice of positive, people don't want to hear that. People are attracted to the negative. You know, they are. It's natural. That's the way we're made. We're made to conflict, okay? People have this certain part of their brain that works that way. But at the end of the day, people don't want to live there. They don't want to live in tension, negativity, conflict. Look, you know, your family gets together for the wedding. Okay, the first hour's good. The second hour's terrible at the dinner. And why did you do that to Uncle Joe? And, you know, but then at the end, right, we're all hugging. We're telling each other how much we love one another. And we say we shouldn't wait till another event for us all to get together. That's where people want to be. But their interest initially is in the negative. So let me just tell you a couple things. In New Hampshire, where Donald Trump beat me, I finished second, but he beat me pretty decisively. They just did a poll of the people who actually voted in New Hampshire. And I now beat Trump 26-22, okay? The other thing I want you to know is running on the positive side of things doesn't always get you the attention. But look, I got two kids, 16 years old and a wife, and I've got friends, and I got people here who are here with me today, you know, Will and Steve, my friend Barney. I've known these people for 25, 30 years. They're actually proud of me. Now, if I start doing things, I don't want to disappoint them. There's more important things in life than winning every inning. So we're just going to keep plugging this way. And now, you know, we're starting to rise. You know, last night, Town Hall on Fox, lots of publicity today. I mean, and we'll see where this goes. This is going to go to an open convention. And when we've gone to open conventions before in the Republican Party, of the 10 that we've had, 7 times the person who was not leading got picked. And this morning, here's what's really cool. Some guy, when I was walking into this diner in Philadelphia this morning, you know what he said? He said, "It's so nice to see you, Governor Lincoln." You go hit Google and find out what he could mean by that, okay? But anyway, I'm not going to change. You know, I'm not going to take the low road to the highest office in the land. I've said it all along, and I'm not changing. So that's it. That's as far as it goes. All right. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Shout it out, kid.
Governor Kasich, thank you for being here. I'm coming to Rockville, Maryland. I am the son The problem is that for people that come in here legally with their families, like my family, we have to wait many, many years, and we're still waiting for our legalization, better known as our green card. So if you propose that we are going to help all these illegal immigrants, which I still support with a path to legalization, wouldn't that create?
But you could have
more-
a path to citizenship. They can never have that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. That took care of that. I mean, but you know what? You want to know something, young man? There is always an element of unfairness in our lives. Okay, it just is. So we have two ways to think about it. We can either get furious and angry, or we can say, I'm going to count my blessings. And it's the job of public officials to try to sort this thing out and try to bring more fairness to people who sometimes get the shaft. My grandfather was a coal miner. He would go down into the mine and dig coal all day long, and he'd bring it up, and they would say, we can only pay you for half because you brought too much peat and not enough coal. Now, who stuck up for my grandfather? Nobody. When I look at this guy that lived across from us, he would get up early, he'd come home late, he'd be dirty. He was a fix-it man. He didn't have anybody sticking up for him. So our job is to try to make sure that we have a sense of fairness in our country. But what do you think? We're not, we're going to get the most fairness and justice on the other side of the grave. And if we get it here, be thankful. Now, that whole process of how you get the path to citizenship, all these things need to be looked at, because sometimes we're using early 20th century technology to live in a 21st century world. And there are probably ways to improve this whole system, which we should do. But just remember, count your blessings. Okay? Was there somebody behind me that had a... Why are you not in school, young man, is my question. Huh? Well, yeah, you're kind of stumbling there a little bit. Go ahead.
Sorry. Today we have Phi Beta Kappa Day. So I don't know why, but in lower school we're celebrating something about college.
Okay, good. Are you going to go to college?
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I know it's always changing, so I decided not to really make my decision this early.
Okay. Good idea. And what are you leaning towards?
Pretty much just seeing what would be best for me and what I could do to help the world.
Beautiful. Now, what is your question?
So I haven't heard a lot about this, especially with all of the candidates. But I am really interested in how are you going to help the environment?
You know what? How old are you, young man?
11.
You come with me, because we got to have a picture. Who's you here with?
My parents.
Where are your parents? Come on, you come on with me. Now, this is tell you something. When you go around the country and you wonder about our future, and let me tell you, it's why we have to do everything we can to make sure that he can have a robust future. This kid is, did you say 11?
11.
He's 11 years old. This is a foreshadow of where this kid's going, because that was incredible. 11, could you have done this when you were 11 years old, huh? There's a lot of people here couldn't do it when they're 111 years old, okay? Where's his mom and dad? Where are they? Okay, do you have a picture here, Mom? Are you his mother or his sister? Take a picture now. Where's your camera? I mean, come on. What did you think? I'm not calling you up here. It's the kid. Here, give me that camera. Give me that camera. Give me that camera. Get up here. Where's my guy? Get up here, Alex, please. Come on, Mom, get up here. This is great. Okay, come on, get over here. Here we go. Huh? You're welcome. So his question is, what are you going to do about the environment? And You know, look, I think we have to be careful about the environment. I'm the one Republican that believes there is climate change, and I believe we affect it, okay? You know what I heard? There's a very conservative, very wealthy, big Republican giver who I told just is talking about his concerns about climate change. I mean, when you read about the bleaching of the corals and you know, the fierceness of the storm, some of it is just connected to global warming, which we've seen come and go. But I have very little doubt that human beings have an impact. Now, I'm not going to create a program to throw everybody out of work, but there are steps that we can take that are reasonable. And the reasonable steps are things like developing renewables, like developing solar and developing wind, and then to be in a position of where we're going to develop battery technology. Now, the reason why, you know, solar doesn't work all that great in Ohio is because we don't get all these great days like this, okay? But we get great days, so when the sun shines, with battery technology, we can capture the energy and store it. And when the wind doesn't blow, and I've been an advocate for putting a wind turbine in front of every state house in America, and God. And then the laughter rolls over the crowd, Barney. But the fact is when the wind doesn't blow, you can still store it. Have any of you seen this Tesla car? It's unbelievable, huh? It is an amazing car, but it's the battery. But the battery doesn't last that long, or as long as we would all like. So when these batteries come, and that brings about the effort of the United States of America to engage in basic science. We don't have to pick winners or losers, but we have these national laboratories. Right now, it's easier to break into the Louvre and steal a painting in Paris than it is for a business to have access to one of our research sites. It's ridiculous. So we need to upgrade and modernize again. This is what it all gets down to. So with the environment, we want to make sure that we are good stewards of it. We don't want to worship it. We want to make sure we have a nice environment, but we also want to make sure that you have work. So steps that we can take now will pay off over time, and that's kind of the way I look at what we need to do with the environment, okay? Now, when this man right here stands up and puts one finger up, that means that it's time for us to go. What do you have to say to him? He does a great job for me. Okay, let me get a couple. All right, way in the back there, young lady.
My question is, it's very important for everybody in America to have health care. So if President Obama has started to give everybody that with Obamacare, how are you going to work harder to make that a better system?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked for the last one, an easy question. But no, look, a couple principles. Nobody in America should lose their health care because they have a pre-existing condition. No one should be bankrupted because of their health. I mean, that's number one. Number two, I'm going to give you a short little thought here. You have no idea, I don't believe. Well, let me ask you this way. Is there anybody in here that really can make an assessment of the quality and cost of the hospitals in your region? Raise your hand. Okay. Can anybody? Oh, you can? Really? Okay. Well, no, I know, but you can't tell me, assess the whole thing. We don't know what the costs are. We don't know what the readmission rate is. We don't know what the infection rate is. We just go. And by the way, I don't know if you ever got a hospital bill, but I believe it's easier to interpret the Dead Sea Scrolls than it is to understand a hospital bill, okay? So we need total transparency. We need to know how the hospital, what they charge. We need to know their quality, because I have to tell you, we're doing this now. You know that just because you charge a lot doesn't get you high quality. And just because you charge less doesn't mean you don't have high quality. So we are bringing total transparency to all of our hospitals in our state, which we should do all across this country. And let me ask you about your primary care doctor. Do you have any idea how your primary care doctor compares? Do you know how it compares? You know, you ever notice, sir, if you go get a knee operation here and he goes over to He goes over to Baltimore and gets one. It's the same operation. The differences can be like $10,000. You say, well, why is that? Well, because nobody knows. So we need complete transparency, and for those people in the medical field, and this was put together with help from the Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the great hospitals, and this is not something the government's doing, but the healthcare professionals are doing. If you are providing very good quality health care below the average, cost below the average, quality high, we will give you a financial reward. You see, because we have to put a downward pressure on the healthcare system, because as you all know, your deductibles are so high now, you might as well just have a catastrophic policy. So we need to do this, and with transparency and the market, and with getting the consumer knowledge and an ability to choose, we can get on top of this whole healthcare issue, as long as we also do the things like eliminating people losing their health care because of a pre-existing condition. And I think this will work nationally, and it's something that can help America to get its costs under control and yet give us good quality and good knowledge. Listen, I have to go because I got to go to Pittsburgh. Thank you all very much. Get out and give me a vote, please. Thank you.